and welcome back to The Give and Go. I'm your coach, Reynoso, here with my boy,
Soltero. What's up, y'all?
AFC World Cup qualifiers, match day 2. Make sure to subscribe as we cover all the football happening here in Asia. We have a lot to talk about as the results are now finally in, and we're going to start with Indonesia, a country that has shown us a lot of support on the channel, so shout out to them.
Big shout
Let's
out.
talk about Indonesia and the result they got today at home, hosting Australia, ending 0-0.
And, you know, I will say, much like the game against Bahrain, Australia dominated this game, at least from a possession perspective. They dictated where the ball was going, how long they held on to it, and when Indonesia got on the ball, they honestly couldn't do much with it. You know, the offensive energy, that really fast counterattacking pace that we saw against Saudi Arabia was not here in Indonesia, unfortunately. But you know what was? Their defense. Once again, and we noted it in the last game for Indonesia, their defense truly has tightened up. Whether it's Idzes, Vrandrik as well, Martin Paes, they all really showed up. Risky Rito at the back, whether it's getting last-ditch defending stops or just really good shot blocking in general, they completely shut out Australia and limited them to very few genuine chances.
No, bro, let's remind the people, it was just a few months ago where we saw this same Australian team defeat Indonesia 4-0 in the round of 16. To get a 0-0 result the way they did today, I think is very, very impressive. And there's a lot to look at on both sides here, but let's just focus in on Indonesia. A big reason for why they got that clean sheet was Martin Paes.
Yeah.
Incredible performance. Once again, he had about 2-3 really good saves that they could have been goals, and he kept them from going in. And then, like you mentioned, last-ditch defending, just incredible effort all around. But I agree. I was a little disappointed in the lack of offensive threat that they had this game.
Yeah.
A big reason, though, was honestly looking at the Australian defense. I thought Harry Sutar was massive today, bro. Massive. And honestly might have been the player of the match for Australia because he stopped every single Indonesian attack.
There's two things going forward for the rest of the qualifiers that I'm going to be watching out based off of these last two matches, and especially based off of this one. It's going to be when they face against physical teams. So against Saudi Arabia, you can outpace them, and it was clearly seen in that game. Honestly, Indonesia could have scored 2 or 3 goals against them if they were just a little bit more clinical off the pass. But against a team like Australia, they're not going to be as naive to get beaten off the pace. They're going to have better positioning, especially with defenders like Sutar. Even in the midfield, you have really physical midfielders with Jackson Irvine, Keanu Bacchus. So I was really curious to see how Indonesia was going to handle it. And ultimately, they really couldn't handle it. Their offense got pretty much dominated. So I'm going to be looking for that in the future. How do they figure it out against very physical teams? The second thing I'm going to be looking out for is just their defense. I can't believe it's tightened up this quickly over the last 8 months. It's phenomenal. I mean, as you already pointed out, 4 goals they led in the last time we played Australia. But this time, honestly, the defense was just as good as Australia's. And I think that's a really big, important point to make, because that means they can go up against one of the best offenses in the region, at least one of the best teams in the region, and hold their own. So I think for Indonesia, yes, they weren't able to win at home, but the defense really proved the point that they can play now in these qualifiers.
Yeah, and when it comes to them getting on the ball, all I ask from Indonesia, especially when it comes to these type of matchups, is one, to learn to adjust to the opponent, because as you mentioned, you can't outrun these Australians. They're way too smart. They're able to body you. It showed today, but what I was hoping to see was Indonesia adapt and be a little bit more patient when they got the ball, instead of just wanting to go all out, full throttle, the way they did against Saudi Arabia. That's what I asked from them, is to be patient, pass the ball around, slow it down just a little bit, bro. I looked up how to say patience in Indonesian, so I can get my message across. I think it's kesabaran. Kesabaran. Kesabaran, please. Take some patience, because I think that would actually help them a lot, because, dude, once again, in back-to-back games, they looked really tired by like the 70th, 80th minute, because they just try to put full energy on display. I think if they're patient, if they slow it down, it'll help the team, it'll help the energy levels. And in this sort of case, I think it would actually help them potentially score a goal against Australia, as they try to put more pressure on this Australian defense by possession instead of counterattacking.
It also is interesting how far Indonesia had to travel based off of the first game. I mean, they were in Saudi Arabia on Thursday. Cut to 4 days later, they had to travel over 1,000 miles to get to Indonesia. Pretty crazy. That's just Asian World Cup qualifiers in general. Japan had to do it. Saudi Arabia had to do it as well. Australia wasn't as aggressive, as they just had to go, a little bit northwest to get to Indonesia. But I do think, especially for a team like Indonesia that really relies on pace and energy, these travel distances might come into play in these World Cup qualifiers. So maybe get their points in those first match days, and the second match days maybe go for draws. I do think it's going to play a big factor.
I also think the Indonesian support that we saw was just as much as I would hope it to be.
Oh, yeah,
it was insane. The crowd was ridiculous. One of the best Asian atmospheres out there. I give them their credit for that. That was incredible to see them play at home. My question to you is this then. With 2 Indonesian games now in the books, what would you grade their overall window so far? What would you grade it? Based off what we saw against Saudi Arabia and against Australia, where does it land?
It's an A. Like, it's top notch, right under an A+. And the reason why giving it so high, even though they only have 2 points after it, is you have to consider Indonesia has never even gotten close to this point. And you start off against 2 continental giants in Saudi Arabia and Australia, and you're able to go toe-to-toe with them, almost beat Saudi Arabia, and get a very well-earned draw against Australia. I think for a nation that is as inexperienced as Indonesia, they pass with flying colors. These are 2 very positive performances. So I thought honestly that they were going to lose one of these games.
Yeah, no, me
like
too.
For me, the expectation was that they were going to drop even more points in this window, but instead they played brilliant football against Saudi Arabia, and I really did think they earned the draw against Australia. Even though Australia played a little bit better, I think they deserved the point. So Indonesia going forward, I think, have proven to us and to the world, if they're watching, that they are going to fight not just for a 3rd or 4th place position in their group, they're going to fight for that 2nd place spot underneath Japan.
And what about Australia? What about Australia, man? With this, I would say, disappointing window so far and disappointing start to this stage. Yeah. There's a cause for concern here for Australians, for Graham Arnold, for the players. Not ideal, man, the performance that we saw from them over 2 matches. What grade does Soltero give them?
No, I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed, dude. This is a C for Australia, man. 1 point out of 2 matches, and you're supposed to be top 2 side in Asia. It's super disappointing. And yes, Bahrain played great. Indonesia played great against them, but you're Australia. You're supposed to dominate these matches. Maybe you get a little tripped up against Bahrain, but you got to fix it in this next match, and they couldn't. I will say, Graham Arnold set out his team to be more offensive. We criticized them in that game against Bahrain that they were way too conservative. He did fix that. He started from the get-go Irankunda and Samuel Silvera. I thought they were both very, very good, at least in shape and going forward. But one thing that became very apparent in this match, man, is Australia don't have any finishers. None.
Dude, that's exactly what I was noticing, is they lack that killer threat, that killer up top. I was thinking, imagine if international football was like club football and you could buy a player, right? What would the transfer value be on bringing back prime Tim Cahill? How much would they pay, bro?
Oh, yeah.
150 mil?
Exactly.
200 mil?
No.
That's the player that they need up top, and they have no semblance of that whatsoever, which is why we've seen 0 goals over 2 matches.
Yes, it's terrible. And then I also look at players like Matthew Leckie, who are so direct, so dangerous on the wing, and they just don't have it anymore. A really interesting player is Irankunda, right? He's signed with Bayern Munich right now. He's very young, but he's so raw. He's so raw. His talent needs to be honed in for many more years before he becomes an effective forward. And then you look at players like Mitchell Duke. I mean, let's be honest, he's never been, an exciting forward. He's a scrapper at best, and he's a good scrapper. Do not get me wrong, but if you need him to score a goal every other game, it's just not going to happen. So you already have your 2 forwards are ineffective. Craig Goodwin, it can be good, but he's just inconsistent. I thought he had the best chance of the match. Around the 30th minute, he was wide open on the left-hand side. He gets the ball, but his touches were ineffective. They were inefficient. He didn't set himself correctly, and he was forced to just shoot it straight at the keeper. But if he had gotten way more proactive touches, he would have had a free shot on goal, one-on-one with the goalkeeper. But he didn't, and that's going to be Australia going forward, man. Like, they're going to get really good positions. They're going to create a lot of chances, but I don't think they're going to have anybody to finish finish them.
And that's how the game ends, with Indonesia tying Australia 0-0. Let us know your thoughts down below in this match. We're going to continue on with Group C action. Let's go over to Bahrain, who hosted Japan today in another whopping, another trashing, another demolishing of the Japanese onto any opponent that is put in front of them. Japan scores five goals on Bahrain to push their goal total in 2 matches to 12 goals overall. This is insane. This is a ridiculous level of offense that we're seeing from Japan. 2 clean sheets in a row as well. Getting past, defying this Bahrain team that we saw play a great game against Australia, but now get dominated by the Japanese.
Insert Thierry Henry saying he's cooking, because Japan is cooking, bro, and they're serving up a 5-course meal.
Yes,
too.
bro.
It's
buffet.
Ridiculous. Bahrain had a good first half, or maybe let's say a good 40 minutes. Yeah. They get unlucky with a penalty call that, in my opinion, was not actually a penalty, but it gets called anyway. It didn't matter because in the second half, the floodgates opened up. Bahrain forgot how to play football for the remaining 45 minutes, and Japan took complete advantage of that. On the road, they made it look easy. It didn't even look like a competitive match the last 30 minutes because every forward pass was going Japan's way. Every dribble was getting past 2-3 Bahraini players. And we noted Bahrain played a great defensive match against Australia, but as Australia have no offense, well, Japan's the exact opposite. They have probably one of the most complete offenses in Asia, not just in Asia, but probably in the entire world. And it has really shown over these last 2 matches. You know, they made Bahrain look like China. And that's crazy because Bahrain's not that bad.
No, man.
But 5-0, you look at the game, and yes, Bahrain were that bad because Japan are just that good.
Japan's that good. They're that good. Ridiculous effort. A+ window for Japan. A+ window.
Yeah,
this is what we were
please.
hoping for them to continue the progress that we saw prior to the AFC Asian Cup. They're back to that. The offense is flowing. Everyone seems much more confident. I think they're the clear front runners as the best team in Asia once again with this victory. But then also, I mean, looking at the group, with Australia playing the way that they are, and Saudi Arabia, even after the result we saw today, like, Japan is going to easily dominate this group, bro. They're not really going to get challenged to the next phase, which will be the World Cup.
I had the exact same thought. Like, after this match today, 5-0 against a decent Bahrain side, I don't think they're going to lose a game. I don't think they're going to lose a single match in this World Cup qualifying stage. And you're right. Once they qualify after this round, it is just the World Cup. And I actually had a similar thought is, are they even going to get tested then going into the World Cup?
Yeah.
I don't think they are. I don't think there's going to be a single team that really makes Japan think. Saudi Arabia are on the down right now. And honestly, Australia, they shouldn't be, but they are on a decline right now as well. So it's just going to be up to these feisty teams in Bahrain and Indonesia to do something. But Bahrain just got whopped 5-0. So this is going to be an incredible campaign for Japan. But I love it. I love the fact that, you know, instead of doing things that CONCACAF teams do, like the USA and Mexico, and just kind of play down to their opponent, Japan's keeping a very high standard. They're scoring 3 goals minimum, and they're going to keep themselves to that task. And I love that because they could have easily just scored 2, 3, and then like, all right, guys, let's just pass the ball around. But no, they kept going. They honestly could have had 7 goals today against Bahrain. And I love that they just keep going because that's all you can do. Instead of play down to your opponent, score 5, 6 goals.
It's cold-blooded though, man, because you look at the goals they scored today, it was a scrimmage. Like, they weren't even celebrating. They score, and then they run back, and they just set up, and they get ready once again, dude. They just dominated Bahrain. My question is, right now they're on 12 goals in 2 games. Do they get over 35 or under 35 goals at the end of this group?
Oh, man. That's
10
good.
games, that's over 3.5 goals per game, bro.
Right, yeah. That's a
over
good,
under.
That's a good over-under bet.
Which one you going with?
Oh, God.
35, man.
What's crazy is that in the build-up to the AFC Asian Cup, I think they average like 3.2 goals a game. So it's like right at 3.5. So you could say over, and it would not be crazy. It would not be crazy.
Yeah.
I think they're going to be right around 3.5 for sure.
Yeah.
I'll go over just for the hell of it.
Yeah, for the fun of it.
Why
Folks,
not?
let us know in the comments, what do you think will happen here? And the last game in Group C was between China and Saudi Arabia, a game that saw Saudi Arabia come back from behind and win 2-1. But this game had a lot of crazy stuff happen with an own goal to start to give China the lead at first. But then Saudi Arabia, just a few minutes later, Mohamed Gano, red card, putting Saudi Arabia up against the wall and giving China a golden opportunity with a 1-0 lead to get points in this group. Saudi Arabia leaves with 3 points behind a brace from their center back.
Yeah, which is pretty crazy. What a big night for Qadesh. I only saw the last 10 minutes of this game as I was just glued to the Indonesia match. Ended up being a really good header off of a corner kick for Qadesh to get the game winner. But for me, even though this is 3 points for Saudi Arabia, congratulations. This just epitomizes both situations for each team, in my opinion. So for China, they were up a man, up a goal, at home, they still lost. All right? That's the situation of Chinese football right now.
Yeah, that's Chinese football right there, man.
And then you look at Saudi Arabia, they're coming off of a shaky draw against Indonesia at home, and things got really ugly for a little bit here against China, and they almost didn't get 3 points, even though they absolutely should have, because China are the worst team in this group, and Saudi Arabia barely got away with a good result here. And that's our point about Saudi Arabia, is this team just doesn't have that aura that they once had for the last 4 or 8 years. If you're struggling against China, I don't know if I can really give you any positives here. All I can say is they fought back, they got the win, but against the worst team in the group, that should be the bare minimum is to win. So yes, good for Saudi Arabia, but I'm not going to give them any plaudits until later on.
You can't. And I don't think Saudi Arabia fans are happy about this either.
Yeah.
Like the fact that they relied on a center back to tie and win the match for them is pretty pathetic. But then also Mohamed Gano, man, getting a red card. He has a history of doing this, bro. Al Hilal has been to 3 Club World Cups. He's gotten a red card at every Club World Cup. Isn't that crazy, dude? He's got a temperament issue, man.
I guess so. Yeah.
And he almost made Saudi Arabia lose points to the worst team in this group, possibly one of the worst teams remaining in all of Asia right now that's in World Cup contention. So that's crazy to me. Mohamed Gano's got to get it right, dude. He has to figure himself out because he is the best midfielder for this team. You have to be a leader, man. Step up, control your emotions, and don't put yourself and your team in this sort of position. But at the end of the day, Saudi Arabia gets 3 points, but I agree. This was a mid-off, man. Nothing convincing from either side. Nothing exciting, honestly. And it is what it is. Saudi Arabia gets 3 points. China is out. What's the grade here for both these teams after this window?
I'll give Saudi Arabia a B because they did get 3 points. That is big, but
4
like
points
I said,
overall.
Yeah, 4 points overall. I just need to see way more from Saudi Arabia, though, like way more. And for China, I mean, D. They got to be failing grade. Like they just haven't done anything, unfortunately.
Group C, after the first international window, has Japan in first, Saudi Arabia in second, Bahrain in third, Indonesia in fourth, Australia in fifth, China in sixth. Indonesia facing off against Bahrain to start off the next window.
That's brilliant. That's awesome.
Yeah, gonna be so fun. The next group that we have is Group B. We've got Group B action, and we're starting off with Jordan going up against Palestine.
Yeah.
Palestine coming off of a tie against South Korea, and Jordan coming off of a tie against Kuwait. This game ends 3-1 in Jordan's favor. We finally see that Jordanian attack arrive at the tournament with a hat trick of assists from Al Mardi and then 2 goals from Al Namait. And watching this game, dude, honestly, Jordan could have had 5 goals. They could have 4 or 5 goals if they could have just finished a little bit better. But Palestine did put in a good match. They tied the game up at 1 point, but in that second half, the Jordanian floodgates just opened up. They started attacking much more. And once the game became a 2-1 match, Palestine tried to push up, and it was wide open at the back for Jordan to take over. That's why I'm saying that they could have had 4 or 5 because they had so many chances. But in conclusion, a good result for Jordan as they bounced back after that disappointing result against Kuwait, and Palestine trying their best here, but just not having enough firepower to go up against one of the better AFC sides.
Exactly. And that's why I'm really excited about this result, because this is exactly what I wanted to see from Jordan. I'm not kidding when I say Jordan have one of the best offenses in the AFC, period. We saw it against Kuwait, but it was not clinical, and it cost them the chance to get 3 points in that match. This first half was good from Ali Olwan. He got a really good goal. Palestine, they definitely did fight back. I was expecting that. Palestine do have a well-rounded team, and they can fight, as they showed against South Korea in that last round. But if Jordan's offense is clicking, there's no reason why they shouldn't be able to beat Palestine. They really turn it on in the second half without Al-Tamari, by the way, who's unfortunately a bit injured, but this is good from Jordan. I need to see more. I want to see this every single game because I think they can score against anybody in this region.
They can. No, they can. They can put up 3, bro, against most teams. They really can. For Palestine, I'm going to give them a A-, maybe even B+ window, honestly. Getting that tie against South Korea, I think, was huge, and then keeping this game tied for 50 minutes, also really big. I never expected them to win or even get points out of either match. So for me, B+ for Palestine. And for Jordan, I'm going to go probably B+ as well.
Same.
I would have wished more out of that Kuwait game, but hopefully this can give them the resurgence needed to really take over this next window. Moving on to another match in Group B, we had South Korea go up against Oman. This game was super interesting. A tight affair that started off with South Korea getting in the lead at first with a 1-0 lead, but then Oman finding their way back into the match and keeping it very competitive. And when the moment was big, when the moment needed a player to step up to really get South Korea out of the mud after a really disappointing result against Palestine just a few days ago, Heung-min steps up, scores a banger of what I'm calling a game winner because this ended the game for me.
Yeah.
From outside the box, touches it, turns, receives it, points it, and shoots and scores. And then he also gets 2 more assists in this match. This was vintage, classic, prime Heung-min today that earned South Korea 3 points, and that's the difference maker right there, bro. It was his talent solely because it was 1-1. He scores the goal, they go up 2-1, and then the rest is history, getting a 3rd goal in consolation time.
And this is how South Korea have been winning lately, by the way. Solely using their difference makers. Hwang Hee-chan getting honestly a really good goal to open up this match. And when it was 1-1 and when Korea were dominating but couldn't find a goal, it was Heung-min with, the way you described it, perfect. A beautiful goal. A near post curler. You really don't see those, but he turned the defender so well, so dynamic. It's Heung-min, one of the best Asian players of all time. So he comes up big once again for South Korea. This is a big 3 points for them as they, were disappointed in the last match against Palestine. And for Oman, this is just an expected performance. They're tough. They're tight. But to win, that's Oman's problem. But a very good performance here from South Korea, just not giving up, keeping going. They definitely dominated the game. So congrats to South Korea. But still, man, there are still times when Oman, who don't have that good of an offense, found acres of space in the box. And if they just had more clinical players, then this would have been a 3-3 affair.
Oh, yeah.
And that's South Korea's problem. So for Korea, yes, this is good, but overall, the balance defensively, I still think is not there. And they have 8 more matches to figure it out. I just wonder if the coaching staff is even concerned, though. Because they should be. Because if you play against more competitive sides, if you could play against teams in the World Cup, Korea is going to get blown out, dude. Rinsed. So I worry for South Korea. Their offense obviously is going to get them through this World Cup qualifying campaign. No problem. There's going to be no problem for Korea. But defensively, man, it's going to get exposed against better offensive sides.
100% agree. And so for that reason, where's the grade on South Korea after what we saw in these 2 games? Where is it?
Yeah, I'm going to give it a flat B. I like their work rate. They should have beaten Palestine. It's what we saw in the AFC Asian Cup. They have so many dynamic players, and eventually they will get 2 or 3 goals on you. But as I just pointed out, their defense still is wide open at times for absolutely no reason. And so, yes, they do get 4 points out of these 2 matches, but I just need a much more dominant performances from Korea. I'm not saying score 5-6 goals like Japan, but dominate in the same way. They're just simply not doing that.
This is great about their talent. Yeah. It's so beyond this Oman team and even Palestine as well. Why can't they even sniff what Japan is doing right now? Right. It's crazy, dude. They're not that different when it comes to talent levels, and at least where the players, their best players are playing at right now. So if you're South Korean, I would be frustrated with the team, and I think people are. I think their fans are. I just wonder if the coaches, if the people in charge are aware of what's going on, man, because it is disappointing. As for Oman, I'm inclined to give them like an A, bro.
Yeah, I mean,
because they lost both games, but they didn't, like, they did the most that they could, I think.
I think so.
Yeah.
I don't think Oman can play better, but what this is they make it very difficult for their opponents. Unfortunately, I just don't think it's going to end in anything overall positive for Oman. Just unfortunate. If they just had slightly more dynamic players going forward, I actually do think they could be a really feisty side, almost like a Bahrain, if you will, but I just don't see Oman doing much in this group.
And then the last match of this group was Kuwait going up against Iraq. What's there to say about this game, man?
This game had zero excitement, man. That's what it was missing. It was missing a little bit of entertainment, if you will. And it sucks, too, because this was my first home game in Kuwait, by the way. I had never seen a football match hosted in the country of Kuwait. And I was actually really impressed with the turnout. Like, there are some really passionate football fans in Kuwait, and they showed up for their team. And it starts off in the second minute with Iraq, the away team, getting a red card. And it was that moment that ultimately dictated how this game would go, because after that moment, Iraq just sat back, and I don't blame them. They're down a man. They absorbed a lot of pressure, and they solely hoped that they could get something on the counter. That's it. They refused to hold the ball up high in an offensive possession posture. They didn't want to do it. I completely understand. And for Kuwait, even though they had a lot of the ball, they were trying to break a low block of an already good defensive side in Iraq. Kuwait don't have those type of players to do that, man. So the result is a really boring 0-0.
Is what we saw, bro. That's what the result is.
That's what happened, man.
Dude, I hope to never see that again.
Yeah,
man.
it was tough. It was tough.
But what did you think? Was it a fair red card? He was going away from the goal.
That's the problem. If he was 3 yards more wide, I'd say no way you can give a red. He is right on that line of you could either go yellow or you could go red. Refs decided to go red. I'm okay with it.
I'm iffy on it. But I get it. I do get this one. It's not like robbery.
It's not robbery.
But it is just one of those where I would have preferred to see just a yellow card. I don't think it would have been. He was going away, and it was a trip up. It was a slip up. It wasn't malintent. But regardless, the card is given, and this Iraq team is just in an interesting situation because they went down a man in this game, but then also no Ayman Hussein, who just moments after the last game finished in which he scored in, he was in the hospital and like he facing some kind of injury. I saw photos of him that he posted on Instagram in the hospital just moments after the game, so unable to show up for this match. And I don't know the clarity behind that. I'm sure the viewers could let us know. But Ayman Hussein out of this match, and then Iraq going down a man ultimately results in them getting a point, which I think is okay at the end of the day given all things considered. So Iraq ends with a point here, Kuwait with a point. Here's an interesting discussion because Kuwait just got a point out of Jordan and a point out of Iraq. That's got to be an A+ window for them.
Absolutely.
Unreal.
It's very similar to the Indonesia take where they're punching above their weight.
Yeah.
They're unbeaten against two very offensive sides in Jordan and Iraq. Yes, obviously they got a little lucky.
I think they got luck. Yeah, they got lucky.
And even in this match against Iraq, up a man, Iraq had the better final 20 minutes. If Iraq were just a little bit more clinical, they would have won this game. And I find it hard to believe that Iraq would not have won if it was 11v11.
Oh, bro, Iraq's winning this.
Exactly.
No disrespect, but I think Iraq is winning this.
That's why, and the thing is, you look at the game against Jordan as well. Jordan should have had 2 or 3 goals in that match. And the penalty was a little bit lucky for Kuwait as well. That's how Kuwait got the goal, is through a penalty. So I don't want to go A like I gave Indonesia, because Indonesia for me gave way more than Kuwait. But I'm going to give them a solid B+ because Kuwait were able to stay in every single match, keep it very tight, and they played good football. They just lack a little bit of verve and energy going forward.
I wonder if what if this approach works? 8 more games to go.
They just do the exact
same approach. They just faced off against 2 really tough teams. Now, their schedule's easier from here on out. I just wonder, what if Kuwait ends up being that team that who by the way snuck into this part of the tournament after a crazy result with India and everything? What if they just they're a scrappy team and they just find a way into the tournament? That'd be a crazy story to watch for in Kuwait. I think ultimately it's not going to give. I think Kuwait is going to find a way to not make it out of this group. But for now, they're positioned in 4th place with 2 points against tough teams, and you got to give them some semblance of credit because it is impressive at the end of the day in games that I thought they would have lost both times.
Yeah, and I also will add, to the respect of Kuwait, they've really impressed me. They're very good in possession. You know, they do not mind being on the ball, whether it's their defensive line or their midfield line. They hold it, they'll pass it around, and they do have good defenders. They just don't pass it around quick enough to displace their opponents. And that's where things are going to break down for them offensively. But against a team like Palestine or against a team like Oman, you know, maybe they actually might be able to win those games, you know, especially since Oman specifically don't really have an offense either. Those will be the games where Kuwait could really surprise. And honestly, going into these rounds, I didn't think Kuwait could do it. But after these two matches, I'm actually a little bit more impressed with what Kuwait has to offer. So, hey, low key, man, Kuwait might be able to get a surprise fourth place finish.
The group currently stands with Jordan in first place, South Korea in second, Iraq in third, Kuwait in fourth, Palestine in fifth, and Oman in sixth. The last group to cover is Group A. And this group has some crazy games.
It really
some
did.
Crazy ones with the biggest shootout, Kyrgyzstan going up against Uzbekistan. And Uzbekistan, impressive comeback from Uzbekistan, scoring goals and responding every time they got scored on. And I'm honestly, at the end of the day, a big result because it keeps them in first place in this group.
The sequence of events in this match blew my mind. We start off with a Joel Kojo banger.
Oh, that was pretty.
A beautiful goal where he brings it down with his right foot perfectly and sets it up to hit it with his left foot. It's a gorgeous goal. Kyrgyzstan at home go up very early 1-0. 1-0 against an Uzbekistan side that I expect to get a top two finish in this group. So all of a sudden I'm like, oh, okay, so Kyrgyzstan came to play. Okay, well, let's have some fun here. Uzbekistan show up. Like, let's wake up here. There was some scary moments against North Korea in their previous match. I was like, okay, so this can't be happening. I need you to sharpen up. And immediately off the kickoff of the reset, they equalize 1-1. I'm like, okay, good, well done, boys. This is what I'm talking about. Like, let's go. And it was honestly, it's just stupid defending from Kyrgyzstan. They switched off. There was 5 Kyrgyzstani defenders, 1 Uzbek player, and he ended up scoring. So really bad defending in that regard for Kyrgyzstan. And if I was a fan, I would have been like, what the heck, guys? Like, we just got a beautiful goal. Kojo can't believe it. He's like, guys, I just scored a banger for us.
Poor guy.
Uzbekistan then, that's what woke them up, though. 1-1, they start dominating possession. They start creating a lot more chances. Here's the funny part. Kyrgyzstan go up 2-1.
No, they don't want to let go.
They don't want to let go. And this goal surprised me even more so than the first one. Not in its beauty, but just the fact that they were able to get another goal. Kyrgyzstan have 2 goals now. And honestly, at that point, I was like, you know what? Let's go Kyrgyzstan, just because they're at home. The crowd's really into it. The players are giving absolutely everything. I'm into it. I'm like, you know what? Uzbekistan can lose 1 game. I don't mind that. 2-1. But then Uzbekistan start cooking. You know, they're not going to let it die. And I really am impressed and happy that Uzbekistan ended up having the second half that they did, because these are the type of games that Uzbekistan would not have won in the past. This is what I was talking about in our preview, that Uzbekistan have to do something that they've never done before, and that is be consistent in World Cup qualifying matches. And that is exactly what they have done. There was some really sticky moments against North Korea. There was a lot of sticky moments here against Kyrgyzstan, but they end up getting 2 very good goals. One off of a nice delivery from the left-hand side. The Uzbek player gets on the end of it, heads it home. It's 2-2. And then also Udinov in the second half gets possessed, twinkle toes, turns the defender inside out, and then bangs it in 3-2. A gorgeous goal from Oston Urunov, one of my favorite players. He's been doing it at Nabahor. He's now doing it in Iran, and he's now doing it for the Uzbek national team. This is a huge result for Uzbekistan because they easily could have not won this game.
6 points.
6 points.
Bro. That's what matters in these World Cup qualifiers, bro. 6 points.
Love to see it.
Huge result. And I was getting angry at this Uzbekistan team, especially when they went down 2-1. I got angry. I was like, "You're kidding me, man! You're kidding me! Everything I've asked out of this Uzbek team, and this is how they pay me, man. This is how they reward me. The trust that I've given them, and they're down to Kyrgyzstan. I don't even know who scored that second goal, because if Kojo's not scoring, who's scoring? Dude?
Right.
So crazy." But great comeback. They get 3 points in this match. And for as many close calls that they've had, like you mentioned, sticky situations, they're getting the results. And that's what matters the most. So credit to them. Uzbekistan, 6 points. Give me the great salts.
I mean, I'm going to go A-. It's 6 perfect points. It's a perfect start, but Uzbekistan can play better, right? And I'm talking about their management defensively.
What if this is how they play?
And that's going to kill me, man. It's going to kill me.
I think so, because it's been a long time since we've seen them have a clean, dominant game now.
I know. And it bothers me because offensively, they can be mesmerizing off the pass. And if they can just use that discipline that they have offensively and translate it over to their back line, I think they can be a complete team. They're that close.
They're close to it.
Usually, it's the opposite. Usually, you have a really solid defense and you have a decent midfield, but your offensive line isn't producing anything. It's the opposite for Uzbekistan, and that hurts me. I don't mind if you can't score goals. It's the hardest thing to do in the sport. It's the hardest thing to do, so I'm never going to criticize you. But if you're letting goals in and you're scoring goals, I'm like, okay, well, this is fixable. So I hope it's not. I hope this isn't the end product for Uzbekistan. I will say, look, no matter what, I'm down for the ride because I love this team.
For sure,
I'm down for it. But they're gonna kill me, man.
I think that's where they're at. I think that's what they are. But hey, if they end up becoming what you hope they become, then I'm there with you.
Right.
And that sounds like a very enjoyable ride. Kyrgyzstan ends up losing this game, 2 losses in a row, 0 points for Kyrgyzstan out of 2 matches. We move on to another crazy scoreline, which saw North Korea host and tie the AFC Asian Cup champions, Qatar, 2-2. Qatar looking much different now that the refs aren't in their pocket. No, I'm joking. Don't attack me. I'm joking. It's a joke.
Whoa. Hey.
But North Korea, 2 goals, a tie in this match, playing Uzbekistan very closely last game. And also scoring bangers in this match despite insane pitch conditions. Oh my gosh. We saw a delay, and then we saw damn near a tornado in the stadium, or hurricane, with crazy rainfall. But that didn't stop the Democratic People's Republic of Korea from scoring these amazing, amazing goals while also being down a man. A point for North Korea, a disappointing one for Qatar.
And I do mean, I'm not even trying to hype up North Korea here, but if this game was 11v11 for the entire 90 minutes, I don't think Qatar would have won. North Korea, from the very first minute, showed the same energy that they showed against Uzbekistan. And it really impressed me against Uzbekistan, and it impressed me even more so here against Qatar, because as soon as this game started, they were closing down the space. They were sprinting to the ball. They were putting a body on every single Qatari player, winning it back quickly, and then moving the ball forward with numbers. They weren't just trying to launch the ball forward to a striker, just to a sole winger, and see if he could craft anything like they have over the last 8 years. I noted it in the game against Uzbekistan. There are some genuine ballers on this side. And it's nuts to me that a league so enclosed as North Korea has been able to produce some of the wingers that they have on this team right now, because they scored 2 beautiful goals today, and I'm just so impressed with the level of play. It's not even the goals either. It's their ability to get out wide and then dribble past a couple of players and then have midfielders join in on the attack and be a genuine threat. North Korea's offense is actually no joke. It's real. These nothing's really accidental.
You don't
here.
score those bangers today accidentally.
No, you don't.
You don't score that.
The first one, just a gorgeous goal from outside the box, and the second one, straight up, probably the craziest free kick I've seen all year.
Defying physics. How do you strike a ball like that in the mud, dude? I don't get it. With that much rain, a wet ball.
I don't get it. The power was crazy.
Yeah.
I can't believe how hard he hit it. The ball transported 40 yards in the air and banged into the back of the net, and while the monsoon was going on. It was crazy. It was the craziest scene I've seen in a while.
So I'm with you in the sense that these players are ballers. And, if you look back at our preview of what we thought was going to happen in the World Cup, I mentioned that I was excited. I was buying into the narrative of North Korea. But, dude, I didn't think they'd be this good.
Nah, same.
They're way better than what I thought. And that makes this group, as well as watching North Korea, super intriguing and super fun for the next 8 matches, because now they have 1 point. They're currently in 4th place above Qatar, and they faced off against 2 top teams in this group, playing really good matches. How are they going to do against Kyrgyzstan? How do they do against UAE, for example? Yeah. I think they've got a fair shot. So if You're North Korean, an incredible performance, something to be super excited about. And how can you not be excited with the type of goals they scored today, man? Like, that's why you love football. That's why you love the sport. That's why I love it, is because these golazos, man, just ridiculous, bro. It's worldwide, man. Doesn't matter what race, what color, anybody can get you a golazo.
Exactly, man. No, seriously. And just what a result here for North Korea. I do think they would have won if they're up a man. The red card, I think, was valid. He tugs Akram Afif. He gets the penalty.
That
it's a red card. Afif at this point is automatic from the spot, by the way. He just doesn't miss. Honestly, across the globe, not just in Asia, I have absolute confidence that he's going to score a penalty. And I really only have like a handful of players that I'm that confident about. Akram Afif is in that category for me. And Almoez Ali, we talk about North Korean scoring bangers. He scored an absolute banger, a screamer, just blasted it into the back of the net. We saw some really gorgeous goals in this Qatar-North Korea match. But as I'm praising North Korea, I'm disappointed in Qatar, man.
Have to be, dude.
I mean, like, come on. Like, even when it was 11v11, I thought they were getting outplayed. I thought North Korea had way more energy. I thought they were way more proactive, whereas Qatar was just kind of reacting to everything, relying on Almoez Ali, relying on Akram Afif to kind of do everything. And this was actually, for me, the worst case scenario for Qatar's start World Cup qualifying campaign, because I think Qatar is a team that relies very heavily on waves of confidence. These two matches have shattered that confidence. And so now, if I'm Qatari, these next two matches are going to happen in October, I'm nervous. I'm nervous because we don't have the confidence anymore. And Qatar, we saw at the World Cup, when they're not confident, they're not good.
And the final game was Iran going up against UAE in UAE's house. And Iran running away with 3 points behind an Al-Gayedi golazo.
Al-Gayedi's had a really good window, by the way. For me, he's been the only really good Irani player. And yes, they get 3 points, but I want to see way more from Iran. Yeah, kind of the similar take I had on South Korea, that yes, they're getting these wins or they're getting their results, but I want to see them dominate a little bit more. The same take for me on Iran. Yes, they've started off this campaign perfectly. Good for them. But I expect that, right? We're talking about one of the biggest nations in the AFC. I expect them to win these matches, but they're just not doing enough for me. I need way more cohesion offensively. To me right now, it seems like they're relying on individual talent. The defense and midfield gets the ball, and then they just kind of knock it forward and hope something happens. It works because their level of talent is way higher than most of their opponents. But against genuine teams, I just don't think Iran would be able to get these type of results. So if you're Iran, if you're in this team, I think you really need to rebuild this chemistry. Honestly, I think they're rattled from their loss in the AFC Asian Cup. They should have gone to the final. They didn't. I think their confidence has taken a big hit as a collective, because I just think this team looks a little disjointed. Defensively, they look fine, but I want to see way more chemistry, way more cohesion going forward when they get on offense.
They need to kill these games off.
Yeah.
It's the second 1-0 victory in a row. Props for getting 6 points, because I want to give them the same type of respect as Uzbekistan. They're getting done what is necessary, but Iran today, Azman and Taremi had chances to put the game away to get a 2-0, 3-0 victory. And if UAE had been more impressive, they probably could have tied this match. Ultimately, they weren't, though. This UAE side tricked me, bro. They tricked me after what I saw against Qatar and then going up against Iran and for an entire half trying to get back into the game, but not doing anything, relying on wonky handball penalty calls and wanting that to be the reason for how they tie the match. Not enough from UAE offensively, which I feel tricked by, because I thought I saw something great just a few days ago against Qatar. Iran gets the 3 points, but I just need to see more in the sense of closing games out, getting 2-3 goals, because they are capable of it. They're just kind of on second gear right now.
Yeah, exactly. And I just hope that they could really fulfill their potential, because a really strong Irani side, I think, is on par with a team like Japan, but it's just not even looking close to something like that. And for the UAE, I actually agree. I think their last victory says more so about Qatar than it really says about the UAE, because today they had the chances, they had the possession against Iran to really create. They couldn't craft anything. Like, they had so much of the ball, especially in that second half, but it ended up being Iran who had way more genuine opportunities in that second half. They just couldn't finish any of them. So this game probably should have been 2-3-0 to Iran. It looks way more flattering for the UAE, but this is kind of what I expected, right? I think they can compete, they can fight, but I just don't really trust this UAE offense, and it really showed today against Iran. They couldn't generate anything.
Uzbekistan is at top right now in first place. place, Iran in second, UAE in third, North Korea in fourth, Qatar in fifth, and in last place, Kyrgyzstan. Folks, let us know your thoughts on this international window in the AFC region. Qualifiers for the 2026 FIFA World Cup. Let us know all your thoughts down below. And we'll see you guys next time for another AFC Roundup.